Hello my beautiful friends and welcome back to our channel. My name is Beck. I'm a medical doctor and the founder of the group coaching membership Dare Darling. We have the most beautiful group of women in this membership doing the work to break free of the disempowering cycles that hold them back. These are brilliant, already successful women who know that they have more to give to life and don't quite get to feel like they can show up in a way that is not on guard or editing themselves, turning themselves down, or even muting themselves. But they're coming to terms with in their life that this isn't good enough for them. Being less than themselves, adjusting and accommodating themselves is no longer acceptable to them. And they want to see who they really are. They want to see how being who they are in the world can and will affect the world. So they come to Dare Darling so we can get them back into a position of power with themselves, for themselves, so that then they can show up from themselves, right? Not being influenced and swayed out of their integrity by everybody else and all of their opinions, right, wrong, good, bad, shoulds, or otherwise. It's all about reconnecting with ourselves, often after a life of disconnecting from ourselves, in the name of trying to do the right thing and be a good person. It is hard to come to terms with the fact that we have been living that way and to admit to ourselves that actually there's this source of what's right and good in ourselves that so desperately wants to be honored and acted upon. Now, in today's video, I wanted to talk about the fact that trust makes us weak. And I know that's probably not a concept that you probably would think would come from my mouth, but I think it's important to talk about these things, what they are, not dress them up and always just make them seem good and happy and warm and cozy, but actually recognize what the challenges are with the decisions we make, particularly with the decisions that we want to make that we're not making. And the fact is that trust, as much as it seems like a beautiful concept, trust does make us weak. Trust has us show up more vulnerably. There's a definition of trust by Charles Feldman that I really appreciate. I think it's a very useful definition for us to work from. Trust is choosing to make something vulnerable to the actions of other people. And vulnerability, let's put that definition down to exposing yourself to being harmed. So I want to focus on how trust makes us vulnerable to other people today in the context of our relationships, both professionally and personally. You know, professionally, relationships are actually a really important topic at the moment. We know, certainly in medicine, loneliness is actually a significant problem. When I say significant, I mean it affects a large proportion of physicians, both senior and junior physicians. The numbers are somewhere in the 30 to 40% of senior and junior physicians that experience loneliness. And loneliness is in part, if not in totality, due to a lack of connection, a lack of meaningful connection with another person. And that, circling back, requires some level of vulnerability. Right? People are walking up and down the hospital just surrounded by people. These physicians are surrounded by people all the time. Even in clinic, we're surrounded by people. But just being around people and having those small talk connections isn't enough to prevent us from feeling lonely. Because it's not just about being in proximity or having the small talk with other people. It's about connecting with other people. And one of the barriers to connecting with other people is the requirement to be vulnerable. Vulnerability can arguably always come part and parcel with a true connection. To actually connect with another person, we need to offer something meaningful in that interaction. So we've beautifully circled back around here to, while trust makes you weak, the reason that we want to accept that weakness in our life, because trusting others and therefore having the ability to connect with others gives us so much back. And if I may, this is just my personal opinion, I do think that that connection that we get to experience over this lifetime is one of the most fulfilling parts of living. One of the things that will help us determine or just feel like at the end of our lives we did live a good life. And I'll just offer that for you to reflect for yourself too. How important is that to you when you are judging for yourself, deciding for yourself, am I living a meaningful life? Have I lived a good life? And this actually doesn't need to just be connections in your most intimate relationships or even with the people that you see the most at work. But I recently had the most gorgeous connection with a total stranger. I'd never met her before. I came across her at the coffee shop and she'd just been through the, dare I say, one of the most awful experiences probably of her life. Hopefully that's the worst thing that ever happens to her in her life. But for a lot of us, this would be the worst thing that we could imagine going through in terms of hurt and loss that we don't recover from, but we instead adjust to and learn to live with. And this person who was seconds before a total stranger to me, we had this incredible connection over just a couple of minutes. And actually I went back to the coffee shop not long ago and she had left a letter there that she'd crafted and made. She'd left her name and her contact details to get in touch, which just makes me think that she found it as meaningful as well, even though we were total strangers. So all of this to say, human connection can be found anywhere. It doesn't have to look like even the typical intimate relationships or formal relationships or even relationships that have a lot of time depth to them. It's just about connecting with other people. And if she wasn't willing to be vulnerable, and if I wasn't willing to be vulnerable, if she wasn't willing to trust me and vice versa, then we would have missed out on that connection. I certainly know that at the start of my relationship, and certainly, you know, being a woman in her early 20s, I had a lot of advice telling me not to give too much of myself to any relationship and not to pour too much, you know, put all of my eggs in one basket. And I really appreciate that advice. I think it's really good advice. And also I had to walk the balance of working out how much am I willing to give in terms of vulnerability and trust in order to get that connection that I wanted for the relationship and get the quality of the relationship that I wanted. So these questions span across all different places, from professional to personal to intimate or family relationships and to total strangers. There are opportunities and choice points for us to trust or not everywhere. And there are consequences to whether we decide to trust or not. And I have no right answers for you about which one you should do at any moment. But the whole point of this video is I want to give this decision back to you and show you the two sides. This video is going to lean towards encouraging you to think about the benefits of trust and how important they are to you, because we do know that loneliness is a problem at the moment. And we do have a tendency to be afraid of the threat that comes with being vulnerable, and that's fair enough, understandably. And we all probably have personal experiences, some more than others and some more hurtful than others, of when we did trust somebody and that threat actually came to fruition. We did end up being harmed by that. Today I want to offer you another perspective that's slightly different to think about trust from. Yes, trust makes you weak. It makes you vulnerable. It exposes you to harm. And also, trust is something we do from strength. Think about the fact that in order to make the decision to expose yourself in that way, you're also with that saying, if you care about yourself, if it's coming from a place of still loving yourself, which it must, you're also saying, I am going to be okay if the worst happens. I am gonna have my own back. I'm gonna be able to take care of myself. I have the resources, the resourcefulness, the resilience to take care of myself if the worst thing happens. You are making a choice to trust. And that is inherently, if you love yourself, if you are doing that for yourself, it's inherently coming from a place of strength. Now, with saying that, let's make sure that's actually true for you. So whenever you make a decision to act with trust, you're also saying, I'm doing this from strength. I want you to make sure that there is actually strength in your system that you can rely on, that you can depend upon. To do this, I want you to make sure that the way that you're exposing yourself is never putting yourself in a position that you couldn't recover from, that you wouldn't be okay in if the worst happened, right? I want to give the example of trusting too much in a relationship, because this is something that it breaks my heart. It happens too commonly to too many women, and it has previously been the norm, and it's changing now. But so many of us fall into these traps still, only from thinking the best of other people and trusting them so much, and arguably here too much. So for example, if you were to get into a relationship with somebody and you were to trust them with everything, and you came to the decision that you're going to split the labor in that old traditional way of the woman takes care of the house, she is the house homemaker, and the man earns the money. Or even if you're not in a heterosexual relationship, this still applies, where somebody has, what is key here is that somebody has the financial role. And actually what is key is that you don't have or put yourself in a position to develop the ability to make your own money, right? And maybe you even do at the time that you're in a relationship, but you have made decisions such that in the next 5, 10, 20 years, your ability to make money or contribute to the workforce or be valuable in the workforce is declining, such that if you were to split in 20 years, you wouldn't easily have a way to make money for yourself. So in this situation, while the trust is so, so beautiful, this is an example of trusting beyond strength, beyond a place that is loving towards you. You are putting yourself in a position where you could end up harmed in a way that is very difficult to recover from. And actually an unacceptable number of women end up homeless because of this pattern, this problem. So trust is a beautiful thing in a relationship, yes. And I'd encourage you to explore what is your right spot for that. But what I want to really highlight on this side of trust over here right now is make sure you are actually trusting from a place of strength. Don't trust beyond your ability to take care of yourself. At the end of the day, trust is a beautiful thing, but more than anything, you need to be able to trust yourself, and you need to be able to take care of yourself and hold your safety in order to do that. Now, this can be the same in lots of other situations, not just one in terms of financial health and shelter and things like that, but also, you know, if you trust somebody with even a piece of information about you that would ultimately be damaging to you, or it would be really hard for you to recover from, or would maybe significantly affect your mental health if that person was not to act within your wishes with that information, for example. That person was to share that information with somebody else in particular or anybody else in the world, and that was to harm you in a way that I'm not sure that you could recover from, or you know you would significantly struggle recovering from. Then that's another example of trusting beyond that self-love base. All right, my beautiful friends, I hope this one was helpful. It's a bit of a controversial topic, but it's something that I really wish I had brought to the front of my mind earlier in my life. I think it would have helped me make some different decisions earlier on that were less generous and less innocently, naively trusting. As beautiful as that is of a characteristic, I think I put a bit too much weight on that as a positive characteristic of myself. And I would have liked to see my past self think a little bit differently. So I want to offer that to you guys too. All right, my beautiful friends, give me a thumbs up if you found this video useful and therefore want to see more videos like this, so I know what kind of content to make for you. And even better, let me know in the comments, what do you want to hear about? What topics do you want more discussion about? What things do you want more examples from my life? Do you want more tools or concepts? Are there particular areas, perfectionism, people pleasing, imposter syndrome, or little places that you get stuck with those issues that you can't seem to figure out a way to budge from? Let me know. I'm your girl. See you guys in my next one.